So I decided to do my first um, learning competency as a blog format, just to kind of get my ideas out there and my points across as I go through them. Um, so we'll get started. So I think that despite what physics might say, or what us as humans might say, the fastest point, from A to B isn't necessarily on a straight line. And we talk about maybe the fastest point to success isn't necessarily in a straight line. Um, After watching Rashawn Richards' TED Talk, I agree with what he said about this concept of education being nonlinear. It's a mess of different things. There's no right or wrong direction to learn and or how we construct our knowledge. And I think it's the path of resistance and hills and one ways and roundabouts that lead us into developing our own knowledge, and it's a journey of how to get there and how do we get to the next step. I think there are a lot of people who believe that learners construct their knowledge in their own unique ways, and I think that's so important to keep in mind, especially as an educator. I don't construct knowledge the same way as my coworker does, and my student teachers do, or my children in my classroom do. We make forms and make connections to knowledge and understandings in our own specific ways. I think that we make those formations of knowledge in very critical and incisive ways, however. I think if we're going to talk about the construction of knowledge, I have to take a constructivist view on it, meaning that these learners understand that they have the ability to construct their own knowledge and that they construct knowledge based on prior experiences and apply them to their new experiences. I think too, it's important to keep in mind that as we're going forward, we're not preparing these learners today for jobs that necessarily are here today. We're preparing them for jobs of the future, jobs that we don't even know exist yet. But I think it's important to provide them with those skills and that foundation that they are in control and they have the ability to construct their own knowledge based on these specific experiences. And I believe that there's something important to keep in mind that as we construct knowledge, I think there's some key components, and one of them is they use real world experiences to construct knowledge. Um, we we are preparing our learners to face this real world or this world, and I'm not just talking about worlds outside of in the future, the world outside of the classroom. I'm talking about any application to the world that's right in front of them. I think that they need to be able to take what they know from that world and apply that to their learnings and make a strong connection to it. I think students of all ages make that connection of knowledge when they have previous construction on it. You think back to when you learned to talk. You didn't just learn to talk. You had a constructive approach to obtaining those skills, whether you knew it or not. And not saying that that was linear. There are things that happened in between, but as you went on and developed that skill, you had that hearing and then sounds and then different things as you became a speaker. If you take that idea and apply it to the real world, I think that you need to keep in mind the idea that those things can happen in the classroom. Having a math concept and saying these are our counting skills that we have. How can we apply that to this? How long is this person, or how many tiles long is the classroom, or anything like that that's really applicable and that they can make that real world connection to. I think that, you could take that idea and move it to the college classroom as well. I go back to when I was in college and I took biology 151 and chemistry 112. Did I learn anything? No. I had really great memorizing skills, but I did what I needed to do to pass the class, but there was no real world experience or real connection to that knowledge. I really started to learn when I started taking courses that applied to things that were happening. So that connection to, my guidance and discipline class, let's say, and seeing how that portrayed in my practicums in the classrooms that I was in or the classrooms that I was visiting. I really got to see that connection between them. And that's when I started to make those learning connections on how I began to construct my knowledge. I think, revisiting the idea that this is a really rich experience and that they need we as learners, they as learners, need to be able to apply that to their world, to their real world. I think critical conversation is the next thing in real world experience that's important. Having those conversations about students and with students, sorry, about their learning, about a certain concept, about their thoughts on it, using that what's happening in the moment experience and applying it to their knowledge. I think experiential learning and doing as you're learning is important as well. John Dewey was a believer in experiential learning, and he believed that knowledge and ideas emerged only from a situation in which the learner had to draw them out of experiences and had to put meaning and importance to them, which I think is so important to keep in mind. I don't think that's the only way people learn. However, I think that you have to make the connection between what you're learning and the content that you're learning it with as well. But I think that it's a great example that we really do need to have those experiences to make those connections. And just learning by doing, having things right in front of you, or taking something you learned in the classroom and applying it to something in the real world, I think is just something that's so important as well. I think the next thing to keep in mind is connections and relationships when we're applying to learning. As humans, we're generally in search of pleasing, and we want other people to please other people, and we want to please ourselves, and really we want to succeed as humans. We as learners we have to provide, when learners have the opportunities, we have to provide them the chance to move on to the next step, or the concept or idea or the skill or the activity. And it's important for them to have a reason to do that and a connection to do that. They learn by recognizing their strengths and using them to manipulate their learning. Even as young children, they find the best way to complete a puzzle or hold a paintbrush or to finish their artwork or use their resources to build the tallest tower. As adult learners, we use our strengths to organize our thoughts and our learning, and how is it that I can learn best, or how can I display this concept best? Even in this course, I find myself right now thinking, how am I going to learn the content best? Or how am I going to display this in the best way? And for me, that's communicating. That's just talking through my thoughts and ideas and getting feedback. And that's how I, as an individual, learn. I think I also have to think about, for me, how does my knowledge apply to my own practice, and how have I seen it in the past? But that doesn't necessarily apply for everybody. I think that strengths are important for people to know, and they're important for us as educators to highlight them and use them in relation to learning and in relation to content and activities and things that are happening in the classroom, and using that to go forward with our students' construction of knowledge. And I think it's important to have goals. I think that we have to have goals to work towards, and not necessarily expectations. We have to have goals in the learning field. So I'm going to try to say this right, Tikite and Parangi, Ministry of Education, they discussed how independent learners seek out and gain new skills and knowledge in accordance to their own needs and wants as a learner and goals as a learner. And I think that's important to keep in mind as we go, that these learners we have are capable of developing that independent learner. And, I see it even in my infants and toddlers. They love learning on their own. They need guidance and support, but they definitely need that strength or that guidance through things, but they really do like constructing their own knowledge and being independent and obtaining something in independence. I think in early childhood education, we are continuously reminding ourselves that there are these little people constructing brand new knowledge of the world every day in our classroom. However, it's not a new way of constructing knowledge. It's just that it's new knowledge that they're constructing. Sometimes in our teachers, or in a teacher's case, that can be difficult to grasp. I think for me in particular, working with my student teachers, they don't necessarily understand that these children have the skills. You just have to support them through that and help them use their skills to gain their new knowledge. I think I think back to these student teachers, they're a year away from having their own classrooms, but they're continuously constructing knowledge of education based on their experiences in my classroom and other practicals. that they have, and it's not new to them. It's not new on how to construct knowledge. However, it is new knowledge and new experiences that they are constructing, and I think that's so important to keep in mind. I think that I'm going to go back to the TEDx talk to finish off my blog on that Rashawn put on. He explained, that we can't try to control the learning experience. The learning experience is authentic and it's important and it's rich. And we need to let things happen and let them be and let experiences happen. And I know as teachers, sometimes we're so set on a fixed goal that we need to set that aside and just guide and support those learning experiences and help foster as the construction of knowledge happens right in front of us. I think that it's a really important thing, and it's a fun thing to see unglue or come together, I guess, the opposite of that. But I think that we really need to support it, and we need to guide it, and we need to embrace it going forward. And I think, much like the linear approach that I talked about at the beginning, I don't think there's a linear approach to the right answer to how knowledge is constructed, but I think it's a kind of a combination of different things, and it means different things to different people, and I think that's okay as long as we're continuing to do those things, support it, guide it, and embrace it as we go forward in the learning experience. So thank you.